My name is Martin Mayenza, and this is my author profile for LIS 6530 Young Adult Literature. As an older student and someone who's been away from young adult reading for over 3 decades, I looked at the list of suggested authors, and most of them really weren't familiar to me. Therefore, I arbitrarily reduced the size of the list by deciding I wanted to do a male author. From that shortened list, I then looked at my local library's online catalog to determine which of those authors might offer me the widest variety of titles of books to look at later. From that list, I decided to choose Walter Dean Myers, an author who actually got his start in young adult literature around the time that I was a young adult myself in reading. Our subject was born Walter Milton Myers on August 12, 1937, in Martinsburg, West Virginia. After his mother passed away when he was 2 years old, he was given to Florence and Herbert Dean of Harlem, New York, to be raised. As a child, he didn't like school very much and was often teased for his speech impediment. He ended up fighting back with his fists. From a very young age, though, he did enjoy to read, and he was encouraged to write by a high school English teacher. One of the first typewriters that he ever received was given to him by his father, Herbert. Along the way, Walter decided to change his middle name to Dean in honor of the people who raised him. Walter was inspired by the writings of James Baldwin, particularly some short stories of Baldwin's that he had read, and this encouraged him to do his own writing on the Black urban experience. In 1969, Walter won the Council on Interracial Books for Children contest, which resulted in the publishing of his first book, Where Does the Day Go? Throughout his career, Walter Dean Myers had many literary accomplishments. He had written many children's books, including the Mr. Monkey series. He also wrote many juvenile books, including the Arrow series, the Cruiser series, and the My Name is America series. Of course, he also wrote numerous young adult novels, of which we are going to look at 3 in just a little bit. Myers wrote to many genres, from fables to poetry, historic fiction to mystery, sci-fi and fantasy, realistic fiction, short stories, and historic nonfiction. Basically, Myers pretty much did it all and explored a variety of genres in order to keep his writing fresh and exciting to his readers. Throughout his career, he received recognition in a number of ways through awards. Some of those are included here. In 1994, he won the Allen Award for Outstanding Contribution to Young Adult Literature. That same year, he also won the Margaret Edwards Award for Teen Writing Contributions. In 1996, he won the Anne V. Zorro Award for Young Readers Literature. In 2010, he was the very first recipient of the Coretta Scott King Virginia Hamilton Award for Lifetime Achievement. With such a long-running career, it was a challenge to figure which of 3 Walter Dean Myers young adult literature books I would focus on for this presentation. I decided to start with one of his earlier works from 1981, a sports-themed book called Hoops. In this book, 17-year-old Lonnie Jackson has the raw talent to make it far playing basketball. He and his team from Harlan are participating in a citywide tournament of champions. His coach Cal has been down this road himself before and hopes that he can help the young man avoid the same mistakes that he made. But the pressures can be great, especially when others have a vested interest in the outcome of the game. Hoops won the American Library Association's Best Book for Young Adults in 1981, and it was also an Edgar Allan Poe Award nominee. For the books, we will look at two different reviews, one coming from a professional source and one coming from a teen or young adult reviewer. In looking at Hoops, the professional review I looked at was from Common Sense Media. Contributor Monica Wyatt had the following things to point out about Hoops. She thought it was a fast basketball action book with sensitive characterization combined with a suspenseful story that attracts sports-minded readers. She felt it was a realistic depiction of life on the streets of Harlem, and that Myers realistically reproduces the slang used by the characters and gives readers a strong sense of life in the ghetto. She felt that families could use the book to talk about the values and ethical choices one makes in their life. Carl Bellingham, a contributor for Teen Inc., had the following thoughts about Hoops. I'd never really liked reading, and I thought it was a waste of time. I love basketball, so I picked out a basketball book. This book makes me think about how hard it would be to grow up in a rough city. I have realized that basketball is a great way to escape the struggles us humans face. Finally, he said, from this story, you will learn that people around you really affect who you are and how much it helps to have the support of family and friends in your life. If you look at these two reviews, you can definitely see some commonality. Obviously, both of them point out the theme of basketball and that individuals who like sports or basketball will enjoy the book. They both attached on to the challenges of Black urban life, and especially in Harlem, and felt that the portrayal and the struggles were realistically done. And they both see the importance of the morals and the themes about making ethical choices and how those are very important to individuals. So in this case, both the professional and the teen reviewers were pretty much on the same page. The second young adult book that I chose for this presentation is the 2009 book Dope Sick. The title actually comes from how an individual reacts when they've taken some drugs. In this story, Jeremy Dance, known as Little J, age 17, is accused of shooting a police officer when a drug delivery goes bad. Hurt, scared, and on the run, he stumbles upon a Harlem crack house and a mysterious stranger named Kelly. Kelly questions Little J to examine his past in an effort to figure out where his life went wrong and what to do to correct his present course. Dope Sick was nominated for an American Library Association Best Book for Young Adults in 2009. Looking at a couple reviews for Dope Sick, I went to the following sources. From the professional side, I went to Kirkus Reviews, and some of the things that the reviewer from this long-standing site had come up with included some of the following things. They labeled the book as quote-unquote street life on a DVR. They said that Little Jay's blend of street bravado and uncertainty never really comes through effectively, leaving the reader with a whining narrator. The supporting characters have vivid page presence, however, in stark contrast to the main character's dull personality. Finally, Kirkus Reviews said, an ambiguous ending coupled with a fantastical slant further diminished the message of the book. From a young adult or teen perspective, I found the following review from a teen named Danny, who goes by the label Bookish Kid on their Tumblr account. And this is what Danny had to say about Dope Sick. It was pretty good for a short book, not as gritty as I expected it to be. Danny said the ending was kind of confusing because it went so quickly. Without knowing Kelly's motives, the end wasn't as satisfying as it could have been. And finally, the reviewer added, this book won an award for the most confusing, possibly magical object, the TV. Again, we've got two reviews who pretty much are on the same page, particularly talking about some of the plot elements of the story. There is a little bit of a fantastical aspect of the story, if you will, because when Little Jay crashes into this crack house and is hiding out, he finds that Kelly has a very interesting television, and through changing channels with the remote, Kelly is able to show Little Jay aspects of his life, mostly from the past, but some from the future. This is a way that Myers uses to give us more exposure to Little Jay's life and how he got to the situation he is in. The interesting thing is, these readers, and certainly myself, you kind of wonder what is real and what is not in this book, because the title is Dope Sick, and it comes from the reaction or how someone might be when they're on drugs. It leaves the readers questioning, is Kelly real? Is everything he's showing him actually the truth? Is it more what's going on in Little Jay's head? You know, what is really kind of going on? And when you do get to the end of the book, and I do agree with these reviewers on this as well, it does get a little confusing. I thought the ending was a little bit unusual. It certainly wasn't where I was expecting it to go. But I think Myers, by the same token, does this on purpose because he leaves the ending open for readers to kind of make their own decisions. And for that, I think that gives the book some of its strength and credit. The third book we will be looking at is Juba, which was published in 2015. In New York City's Five Points district in the early 1840s, a black teen dancer known as Master Juba is paid to put together an interracial show. By chance, author Charles Dickens is in the audience, and word quickly spreads about Juba's talent. This encounter would forever change the man's life. The book is a fictionalized account of the life of William Henry Lane, a recognized innovator of tap and step dancing. Juba won the 2016 award from the Cooperative Children's Book Center as a choice for fiction for young adults. In looking at reviews for Juba, the first we have is from a professional source, the Booklist Online. Booklist Online had the following to say about it. Having plumbed the archives for information about the 19th century dancing sensation known as Juba, Myers pieces together a fictionalized account of his extraordinary life in this posthumous novel. They pointed out that vintage illustrations and news clippings and the incorporation of historical figures further helped to bring him to life. Also, though Juba meets a sad and premature end, his story offers an intriguing glimpse into America's past. And one thing they further wanted to advise is note that period-appropriate use of the N-word may prompt classroom and dinner table discussion. To get a different perspective, we look to Teen Reads and contributor Ariel G., who had the following things to say about Juba. Highly enjoyable in a variety of ways. Myers' incredible knack for meticulous research. The book is enhanced with actual maps, photographs, images pertaining to the story, and they become a vivid reminder that these events actually took place. Ariel also had the following to say. Juba gracefully advocates some beautiful ideas, including not giving up, believing in oneself, and chasing after dreams. And finally added, Juba strongly encourages fans of history and those who enjoy learning about different cultures to read this book. Looking again at these two reviews, they both touch upon the importance of the historical aspect and the inclusion of pictures and other artifacts that Myers had used to help inspire him create this novel. They also point out the importance in the theme about believing in oneself and it being a book with a very strong and positive message. And I do agree with both of these reviewers. I think Myers did an excellent job in fleshing out the life of this very interesting individual who had an important influence in dance in America. To wrap up our presentation, I thought I'd give you just a little bit more on Walter Dean Myers' life. He lived in Jersey City, New Jersey with his wife and his 2 sons, 6 grandchildren, and 2 great-grandchildren. He served as the National Ambassador for Young People's Literature in 2012 and 2013, appointed by the Library of Congress. And on July 1st of 2014, at age 76, Walter Dean Myers died at Beth Israel Medical Center in Manhattan after suffering a brief illness. As you can see from my presentation, Myers had a very prolific writing career, and a lot of themes he explored related to the Black urban experience in many different ways. And from here, this last slide, I chose to just spotlight a handful of the titles and covers of many of the young adult literature that he had written. I hope that you found this presentation interesting and that you might seek out for yourself, if you haven't already done so, some books by Walter Dean Myers.